Tonight on Philly Sports Spotlight.
Now welcome to the Artie Clear Show. What do you say, what do you know? It's Wi-Fi 1460. It's the Artie Clear Show here on a Monday.
We catch up with longtime friend and radio show host Artie Clear, who has some exciting news to share with Philadelphia sports fans. Plus, Artie will share his thoughts on the NCAA tournament, as well as the Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, and Phils. And good evening once again. I'm Phil Andrews. Welcome to Philly Sports Spotlight, where tonight we're going to talk Philly sports with a diehard Philly sports fan. I know you're all sitting out there saying, hey, I'm a diehard sports fan, and that is true. But this guy, something special about this guy. And if you're wondering why he's different than you, well, he has his own forum to talk about the teams he loves every week on his own radio show, self-named The Artie Clear Show. Art, who grew up in Bucks County, PA, is a walking encyclopedia of Philly sports, just like I know a lot of you are. Knowledge of clearly which you will see, if you excuse the pun, over the next half hour or so. He's very animated. He's a great personality, and each week on his radio show, WFII 1460. But folks, just like the Jeffersons, Artie Clear and his show are moving on up, right?
That's true.
And with that said, folks, let's welcome to the set of Philly Sports Spotlight, Artie Clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
There's a
Bill.
little teaser there. Your show is moving on up. You got a lot of fans, I found out, too. When I posted this on my Facebook page, there were a lot of fans that were happy that you were making the move, and we'll talk about that in a second. But first, let's talk about where you started as far as the show is concerned.
I started at WIFI 1460 about 4 years ago, and I was doing a lot of stuff with sports, and I've always loved sports, and always wanted to have my own show or be involved in sports, and always followed some of my favorite players of all time in Philadelphia, and Dr. J was definitely my guy that I always wanted to interview. I always wanted to be down to Spectrum at the time to see the 76ers play, and who else better to see than Julius Erving to do his act in Philadelphia. So at that point, I said, I really want to be in sports, and I want to be where I can interview guys and have my own show and express my knowledge to do sports. And I developed the show, and it's going really good right now.
Well, we're going to tell our viewers how good it's going. Before we move on, though, you should know that you just mentioned Julius Erving.
Yes.
Artie thinks that Julius Erving is the best all-time basketball player ever for his era, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we'll talk about that at another time. Now, why is this show moving on up? Well, let's take a look. We're going to set this up. Big-time news coming from the Artie Clear Show. This is the logo that Artie has been using for the last 4 years, the Artie Clear Show. This logo, folks, is about to get a major facelift because as of this week, this is what it's going to start looking like. Joyner and Clear in the morning, WNJC 1360. Your show is moving from where it is to drive time in the morning. And may I just say, my friend, you are moving into the teeth of the shark, if you will, because you're going to be going up against two very established radio shows. But who's this Joyner fellow that you're talking about?
Well, he's no one else but number 59 in your program, Seth Joyner, joins forces with myself, and he will be doing the morning drive with me on WNJC 1360. Seth Joyner is one of the greatest linebackers Philadelphia's ever had, and he's a pleasure to do a show with. The knowledge is tremendous, and he brings it every single day on WNJC from 7 to 9. And I like going up against those monster stations because we're aiming to take them down.
Yeah. Now, what I'd like to tell you is I had a chance to cover Seth earlier in his career. And Seth, 6'2", 240, very imposing, always had a scowl on his face. Always the last guy you wanted to interview in the locker room because you never knew what he was thinking at that time. But he was one of those cornerstone guys, just like, Reggie and Jerome Brown on those early Buddy Ryan defenses. But he has made that transition from being a player to being a media personality, and he is something else, isn't he?
Oh, he's tremendous when it comes to his foundation, teaching young kids, talking about the Eagles. His heart's in Philadelphia, and that's why he joined forces with me. He's a throwback to the Buddy Ryan era, and he just loves Philadelphia. And in fact, he said to me, the only place I'd ever go to do radio, coach, or be in sports would be in Philadelphia. And luckily enough, I cultivated him, and now he's with me, and I love it.
Joyner and Clear in the morning. We'll talk more about your show in just a moment. What I'd like to do now is kind of switch gears and talk about the NCAA tournament because everyone right now in the area is buzzing about this LaSalle Explorer team. They're one of the last teams picked to go into the tournament, and they're the last Philadelphia team standing. Let's just talk about what they did over the last couple of days, of course, starting with the playing game.
Well, I would say that LaSalle has really shocked the world at this point, winning 3 games in the field of 64, and now they're in the Sweet 16. That kid Garland made a beautiful shot the other night, and then they have their other player, 55, Galloway, who's really as long distance dial. He must be dialing from a telephone book. He's shooting 30-footers and swishing everything, and the bounces are going their way. I think LaSalle is a team of destiny. They did a really nice job. They outlasted Villanova and Temple. And right now, the Cinderella slipper fits on LaSalle in Philadelphia.
If the shoe fits, okay, that's all I'm going to say. Now, Fran Dunphy took his Temple Owls dancing for the 5th consecutive year in a row. But the knock on Fran is as his teams were won and Dunphy. Well, Artie, not this year, okay? They did get past the first round. As you can see, they had that nice 9-8 matchup with NC State. We'll call it the second round based on the playing games. Let's talk about the second game, though, the Temple, Indiana game, and Khalif Wyatt.
Khalif had a really great game in that game against Indiana. He had the 31 points. He had 20 out of the 26 points they scored in the first half. And then when the pressure come down, you can see Khalif wanting the ball, and they're trying to get him. And then Indiana put their best defender on him. And then at one point, you can see Khalif throw his hands up in the air, because they couldn't get him the ball. And he just said, "Okay, I'll just wait here. You guys do your thing." But I'll tell you one thing: he's a heck of a ball player, and he's going to make the NBA. He's a really good player for them. He gets at 101, and Villanova. Temple, they have a nice player.
Well, no, you're kind of jumping the gun, but let's talk about Villanova. Let's show the full screen for Villanova. They were one, again, this is a classic matchup, North Carolina and Villanova. Not the first time they've met in a tournament, but another tough game for Jay Wright and company.
It was a tough game for them, and Villanova, who had a chance in that game. But North Carolina, I thought they got an 8 or 9 seed. They were. I thought that was a seed that they deserved a better seed than that, and they were a better team than that. They have McAdoo's son out there, and they played good for North Carolina, but Villanova just didn't have the horses this year. But next year, boy, it'll be a whole different story with Jay Wright at the head coach there, if he can keep his job.
He's got some recruits coming in next year. Okay, we're going to wrap up the segment shortly. Before we do, I don't know what your political allegiance is, Democrat, Republican, Independent, but how do you feel about the president making selections on the bracket?
I like the president making selections in the bracket there, and he has some right and he has some wrong, but he's done a nice job, and I like the president to put a bracket out there. It means he's involved in America in sports, and sports is a healthy thing to be involved in, and why shouldn't the president have the Barack Obama allergy?
This was his Sweet 16 pick. How many did he get right? Let's see. Okay. This is the actual Sweet 16 that's left. So you see Oregon, so there's 5 teams there, 6 teams there. So he did pretty well. 10
alive, 6 that didn't think was going to get in there, but he has all his teams alive in each bracket to get to the Final Four, which is what you want to do. He did a nice job.
Yeah, I think so. I would have taken that bracket. I know my sons both would have taken that bracket. All right, Artie, don't go anywhere. We're going to time to take our first break. And as we do at this time every week, we can take a look at the trivia question. And it's based on the NCAA tournament. Temple's Khalif Wyatt had 31 points in the opening round of the tournament, which was the single game high for a player in the opening round of this year's event. Can you name the all-time single game scoring king in tournament history? The answer coming up a little bit later on in the show. Also, still to come, Artie gives us his thoughts on Doc Halladay and the Phillies as they get set to come north for next week's season opener.